who would be the NFL's most improved player this upcoming season? Now, you have a lot of players who you could choose from. For me, I think it's going to be Tua Tagovailoa. I think Tua, now with the fact that you have a offensive-minded head coach in Mike McDaniel, and you improved the offensive line by signing Connor Williams, you signed left tackle Teron Armstead. This offensive line is going to be the best that it has ever been since Tua became the starting quarterback in Miami. On top of that, you bring in a lot of running backs such as Raheem Mostert. You bring in Sony Michel. You also have a running back that you got from the Arizona Cardinals and Chase Edmonds, who I think is going to be their all-around back. I think he's going to be the best pass-catching back that they currently have on the roster, so he's also going to be utilized. You also traded for star wide receiver and Tyreek Hill. You pair him up with Jalen Waddle, and you also have Mike Gesicki. You have a really good offense. And then you have Cedric Wilson on the outside. So this offense is probably going to be the most talented that Tua Tagovailoa ever had. And then Miami also has a really good defense. Now, I also think that Trey Lance could also take some major steps forward this season. He didn't really see a lot of action last season, and when he did, he wasn't really all that bad compared to the quarterback play that we got out of Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence. Trey Lance was actually pretty good. And I think out of all of the quarterbacks that are going into year 2 of their careers, I think that Trey Lance is in the best situation. You have one of the best play callers in the NFL and Kyle Shanahan. You have a really good group of wide receivers. You got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. You're going to have George Kittle at tight end. Now, the offensive line is a little bit of a concern to me. But I do think that with the coaching staff that the Niners have, they are going to improve that. And they do have some guys who are going to end up stepping in who they have a lot of confidence in. And you're also going to be somebody who's going to be heavily predicated on running the football. So for Trey Lance, I think that with his mobility and what he can do with his arm strength, being able to throw from any platform on any side of the field, I think that he also could improve a lot this year. Trevor Lawrence. I said this a couple of days ago, but if Trevor Lawrence ends up improving and becoming the quarterback that we all envisioned he could be when the Jacksonville Jaguars selected him number 1 overall in the 2021 NFL Draft, there's no reason why the Jaguars can't go from worst to first in the AFC South this year. Plus, you have Doug Peterson, somebody who does have a pretty good track record when it comes to developing quarterbacks. He did a really good job with Carson Wentz, and also he won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. Now, if you want to give that credit to Frank Reich, go ahead, but I just think that it's a little bit ignorant to just say that Doug Peterson didn't have no impact at all in the development of Carson Wentz. He also had a good impact on the downfall of Carson Wentz. But overall, I think that Doug Peterson is a pretty good coach. And I think with the Jacksonville Jaguars improving their wide receiving core, adding Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, pairing him up with Marvin Jones, even though this wide receiving core isn't great, I still think that is better compared to what Trevor Lawrence was throwing to last year. Trevor Lawrence threw a touchdown to Tavon Austin last season, guys. Tavon Austin. When is the last time you heard Tavon Austin's name? Probably not since he was playing at West Virginia back in 2012 and when he was drafted in the first round by the LA Rams in 2013. So the fact that he was throwing to guys such as Tavon Austin and Laquan Treadwell tells you everything you need to know about how bad the receiving corps was for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones could surprise us. Daniel Jones is in a really good situation with the New York Jets. You drafted Evan Neal. You're going to be pairing him up with Andrew Thomas. You have a really good offensive tackle situation. The interior of your offensive line still needs some work, but you have Brian Daboll, who looks to be really promising as a head coach. He was one of the best play callers in the NFL. during his time as OC for the Buffalo Bills. He was instrumental in the development of Josh Allen into what he is now. So I think that Daniel Jones now is in a situation where there's no excuses. You have Kadarius Toney. Hopefully he can stay healthy. You have Kenny Galladay on the outside. You're going to have Saquon Barkley fully healthy once again. This is a Giants offense that has all of the weapons, and they have all the pieces around Daniel Jones for him to be successful. Now, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is another quarterback that could improve a lot this season, because last year, in his first season being the true starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, he took them to the playoffs, albeit, you know, he had some pretty up and down performances throughout the 2021 season. There were a lot of ugly performances that the Eagles had when it came to throwing the football. However, you bring in A.J. Brown, you pair him up with Devontae Smith. You have one of the better wide receiving duos in the NFL. You got tight end Dallas Goedert. You have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I think that Jalen Hurts could take some tremendous step forwards. And on top of that, if Jalen Hurts ends up improving as a passer, and you couple that with his ability to run the football at a really high level, I think that he could end up being a dark horse MVP candidate. Now, that all depends on how successful Philadelphia is this season, but I think that if Jalen Hurts takes that next step up as a passer, because last season I think he was a below average passer, if he becomes a above average passer, I'm not saying that he has to be Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, but if he can just become a above average passer, I think that he could end up having a really great season. And with trading for A.J. Brown and having Devontae Smith there, it's going to help make his development a little bit more easier. What about non-quarterback? Gabriel Davis. This is somebody who went off in the playoffs for the Buffalo Bills against the Kansas City Chiefs. This guy had over 200 receiving yards. He was unstoppable. And going into this season with the Buffalo Bills, he's in a prime spot for him to end up having a season where maybe he goes over 1,000 yards, because Stephon Diggs is one of the best receivers in the league. He's already going to get a lot of attention. He's going to be seeing double teams. So Gabriel Davis is going to be that guy who the Buffalo Bills are going to be relying on when Stephon Diggs ends up getting doubled and triple teamed. And I think with how explosive Gabriel Davis is, I think he can end up being there for a breakout season this year. What about Minnesota Vikings tight end Irv Smith? Irv Smith, we've been hearing this name for over the last couple of years since the Minnesota Vikings first drafted him out of Alabama. And really, I feel as if the previous regime underutilized Irv Smith. They didn't really know how to use his skill set. Now you have Kevin O'Connell, who comes from that Sean McVay coaching tree, along with Zach Taylor. I think with the Minnesota Vikings moving to a more pass-first offense, that's going to benefit Irv Smith. So he can end up being the most improved player in the NFL from a non-quarterback position. What about the defensive side of the football? Jaycee Horn, I don't know if you really would qualify him for this discussion, but I mean, he got injured last season. And with him coming back, a lot of people kind of forgot about Jaycee Horn. If he ends up being as good as what a lot of people envisioned him being when he got drafted by the Carolina Panthers a year ago, I think he can end up being a top 10 cornerback and having a huge impact on that Carolina Panthers defense this season. Also, another cornerback that I love a lot is Kelvin Joseph with the Dallas Cowboys. Now, he currently has some legal complications going on, but if those end up working in his favor and he ends up being able to play for the Dallas Cowboys this season, he most likely is going to be a starter. I thought he would have been a starter last year, but he ended up having some injuries that held him back. But when he was on the field, he was really productive. He made a couple of solid plays for the Dallas Cowboys on the defensive side of the football. So you have him that I really like a lot. And then you have Javon Kinlaw, defensive lineman for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, we've talked more about Javon Kinlaw's off-the-field drama versus how much we talked about him on the field. But he's coming off a season-ending injury last season. I still have a lot of faith in Javon Kinlaw. I think that he's been doing a lot of good things this offseason, minus the beef that he had with that 49ers reporter. There's been a lot of 49ers coaches who have said a lot of good things about him in terms of where he's at in his development. I think that Javon Kinlaw could end up popping off this season. And if he does, I think he definitely deserves to end up winning the Most Improved Player award if the NFL ever was to have one. So those are a couple of players that I believe could be in the running for the NFL's Most Improved Player this upcoming season in 2022.